Happy Thursday, everyone. Josh's severe weather. Hope you all are having a great week. And we've got a week to go till Thanksgiving here in the U.S. Lots of weather to talk about in the upcoming week. Some big changes in our weather patterns, some big storms that are going to cause disruption to us. And we also have some tropical trouble here in the Caribbean today that I'm still taking a look at for you guys. Still a possibility of some tropical development. So next week, we've got what's probably going to be our biggest storm in several months here. Low pressure moving into California here this weekend is going to track across the southern U.S. Much colder air coming down from the North Pole is going to bring us some very cold air for this time of the year. And as this low pressure tracks up towards the Great Lakes in Northeast and in Eastern Canada, we've got a lot of moisture getting drawn northward and stronger winds aloft, which could lead to some severe weather as we get to the first part of next week across portions of the deep south into the Tennessee Valley. And as that storm tracks through and draws that colder air down with it, some wintry weather here, both on the front end of the storm in the Northeast, interior Northeast in New England, as well as on the backside of the storm here before Thanksgiving across the Great Lakes. There's still a lot of time to talk about some details, but you will want to obviously keep track of what's going to be expected here next week. That will probably change a little bit with the details. The storm track may shift a little bit, timing may shift a little bit. But nonetheless, this is going to cause us some issues. And behind this storm, we're likely to see more unsettled weather heading into next weekend for those of you that may be doing some travel on the backside of Thanksgiving. So we're going to talk more about that here in the coming days. Well, meteorologists will. I'm actually going to be overseas in Korea for 10 days, so I will not be on YouTube. So I apologize for that in advance. I have a wedding to go to. My brother's getting married in Korea, so I'm kind of excited about that, although a little anxious with all the travel with my family here. But anyway, that's just a personal note. Let's look at the tropics. We have two areas to watch. Really, the one area I'm concerned about is this disturbance, AL98, a 60% chance of becoming a depression or even a low-end tropical storm as it crosses Jamaica and eastern Cuba here, getting into early in the weekend and then accelerating northeast towards Bermuda here over the weekend. We do have a non-tropical low, which has caused all kinds of issues here in South Florida overnight into early this morning. That is pulling away from land. It has a 10% chance of becoming maybe a subtropical system over the warmer Gulf Stream waters. But honestly, the damage has already been done with this storm. It's not going to get a name, I don't think, but it is going to cause some issues as it zips up the coast. And the trend for this low pressure system has actually been a little bit further offshore from the Outer Banks and from New England as we get towards the weekend. So we are going to see less of a grim forecast in the Outer Banks or even Cape Cod as we get into Thursday night and Friday, but maybe more of a grim forecast for the Maritimes of Canada as we head into the beginning of the weekend. Here's a wide view of what's going on. And I'm going to circle some features for you guys here to track with me at home or wherever you're watching me from today. But you can see this is AL 98. It is an invest right now, AL meaning the Atlantic Basin. And that is tracking slowly northeast towards Jamaica, already bringing a lot of rain and moisture with it into the Southwest Caribbean, into some of the greater Antilles. Now, in the Gulf, we do have a weak low pressure system, which is going to transfer over to this low that's formed just off the coast of South Florida. And that is going to zip up the coast here and move into Atlantic Canada. It's going to draw the moisture here northeastward with it as well, close to Bermuda. So we've got kind of a corridor of two storms, one here and one here. And both of them are going to move very quickly and yield to this next trough that's going to move into the western U.S. over the weekend, and that's going to shift east next week. We also have a pretty powerful non-tropical low here associated with a front that's heading again into Europe and Iceland and going to cause some potential issues there as we get to the latter part of this week. Aside from that, I think this is going to shut things down in the tropics overall, aside from maybe a storm like this that gets a little farther south into marginally warm waters in December. I don't think we're going to be dealing with anything of any major tropical and anything that's going to be a tropical entity. It's been a tough week, guys. I apologize. Anyway, here's a closer look at the Southwest Caribbean. You can see the spin up over the Gulf. You can see the broad low pressure system here, which has taken on some better organization, starting to wrap itself up here. And about a 60% chance this becomes a depression by tomorrow. We are going to have a plane flying in this afternoon. That's going to look and see if there is, in fact, a surface circulation because the winds are already getting close to tropical storm force. And we're going to start feeling those winds in Jamaica here this afternoon into tonight. On the water vapor image, you can see there is quite a bit of dry air on the western side, but we are protected from that here in the Caribbean. So the moisture is there. The wind shear is a little bit high, but we just need to see something tighten up here near the surface. And once the plane gets in there this afternoon, it'll kind of determine if we do have, in fact, a potential tropical cyclone or if we just have a disturbance which isn't going to develop. And this time of the year and this kind of warm waters, development doesn't take a lot of time. So this very well could blow up overnight tonight and be a storm by tomorrow morning, moving past Jamaica towards Cuba. But right now you can see it's not super organized. It just doesn't have the low-level organization that you would expect to see in a developing depression at this point. Here's a look at the visible image from Tropical Tidbits. Easy to see where the thunderstorms have blown up very quickly here on the eastern side here of the circulation. This is Nicaragua. This is Honduras. And you guys are getting dry air in Central America on the backside of the system. All the heavy rain is wrapping around the southern end of it. So Panama is getting some welcome rainfall. Costa Rica is getting welcome rain. A lot of rain over portions of Colombia. In fact, there was unfortunately a young lady who was struck by lightning on one of the beaches and killed in Colombia here a few days ago. So it's definitely been a stormy month across portions of South America and adjacent islands here. So my thoughts and prayers are, of course, with the people impacted in that situation. Very difficult to hear that in the weather world. You can see on the European here, the chance for this being a depression is basically 100%, having tropical depression force winds. However, we don't really have the circulation center, so that chance does start to weaken a little bit by the time we get to Saturday. And by the time we get to Sunday, this is already pretty much out of here at this point. I don't think it's sticking around in the Caribbean, despite what one or two of the ensemble members show. I just think the wind flow aloft is a little bit too strong. So that's it. Once we get past Monday and Tuesday of next week, the tropics pretty much shut down here, as you would expect, around Thanksgiving. Now, we do have tropical models being run on this disturbance here, and you can see generally speaking, some pretty good agreement in the next 48 hours that we will have this system moving over Jamaica and then towards southeast Cuba and inching just to the west of Haiti. This is 48 hours, putting us at 7 a.m. Eastern on Saturday. After that, it clips through the southeast Bahamas and accelerates. This is Bermuda, and it looks like it makes its nearest approach to Bermuda here early in the day on Sunday before accelerating away. At that point, it's probably merging with our cold front, no longer technically tropical, but the models are still going to run based on what we see. As far as the intensity goes, this thing is actually, whoops, thought I had it open here. And I don't know what happened to my intensity forecast. I think maybe I accidentally closed it out. But I'll tell you what, we'll just zip back here on tropicaltidbits.com. We can do this here. And here's a look at the intensity forecast. This is from the 7 a.m. models. Aside from one outlier, we're pretty much looking at something that may be approaching tropical storm strength, whether or not it officially is a storm. Vince is the next name on the list. I keep saying Vince for the last month. Like it's not very convincing that we're going to have Vince, but certainly that's a chance. But whether or not it becomes a tropical system, it will have tropical storm force winds throughout the life of the next 72 hours or so before merging with the front. So probably not getting to hurricane strength. Possibility it is a tropical storm, low end chance it remains a depression, and about a 40% chance that we're talking about something that doesn't even organize into a tropical system. So that's what we're looking at. I do want to show you all some impacts here. Rain, obviously a big deal here in the Caribbean, with the potential to see as much as 600 millimeters of rain. That's almost 2 feet of rain somewhere near the northeastern tip of Jamaica and just south of Guantanamo Bay here. Possibly 1 to 2 feet of rain in this area in here. Let me circle it because I know you guys can't really follow my mouse, and I apologize. But you can see the heaviest rain kind of right here between northeastern Jamaica and the far southeastern portion of Cuba. 1 to 2 feet of rain possible. I don't know if I can change this color. We'll try here. I would go red, but that doesn't really help. But anyway, hopefully that's easier to see. But you can see that big area of rain, but even in southwestern Haiti, the possibility of close to 100 millimeters of rain, which is almost 6 inches of rain. So quite a bit of rain across this area here, even up into the Bahamas. And the rain does continue even after the front moves through here later in the weekend. Puerto Rico gets in on some of that heavier rain, 50 to maybe 70 millimeters of rain possible. Wind, I don't think is a huge deal, but we are going to see some gusty winds here. This is tomorrow evening. 30 to 40 knot possible wind gusts. That gets us to tropical storm force. And then it actually gets a little bit worse as things move through the Turks and Caicos. Wind gusts Saturday afternoon and night could get up to 50 knots, which is close to 60 miles per hour. You can see the stronger winds are actually as the storm is pulling away and losing its tropical identity by the time we get to Saturday night and Sunday. And here's a closer look here at the Western Atlantic, and you can see Bermuda may have gusts to 46 knots. That's about 50 to 55 miles per hour. Time frame for that's going to be early on Saturday. Even as the storm makes its closest approach, it's merging with a front, merging with that other low we're talking about. And really the strongest winds are over the open waters. So that's what we like to see. However, we could get clipped with gusts close to hurricane force over central and eastern Nova Scotia and not far from southwestern Newfoundland. The time frame on those winds looks to be Saturday evening and early overnight Saturday night before things settle down Sunday morning. You can see here, Cape Breton is looking at wind gusts potentially to 72 knots. That's about 80 to 85 miles per hour. We've already seen winds like that out of this system over South Florida, which I'm going to show you now. Interesting setup last night in South Florida. We had kind of a mesoscale low form right in this area here of the Keys and track right up through Key Largo and just off the coast. And on the northwest side, we saw wind gusts frequently getting between 60 and 80 miles per hour. Not a named system, but for South Florida, your worst storm of the whole year. So it doesn't need a name to be a problem. And we've seen amounts of over a foot of rain in parts of Miami-Dade and Broward County, and even parts of the Upper Keys picked up 6 to 12 inches of rain. So basically it was a tropical storm for you. But now the good news, I need to go back to pink. I just can't win this. The good news, though, is that the low is now in this area and beginning to pull away. It is going to approach the Bahamas, but the worst of the wind should remain here over the straits between South Florida and the western portions of, clear all this, western portions of the Bahamas. So very nasty setup here in South Florida. This storm, by the way, because of how it's formed, the models are now showing the majority of it staying offshore. This is going to be around 3 or 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. You can see the heavy rain coming up close to the Outer Banks of North Carolina in here. We do have a front that's going to bring us some colder weather into the northeast and a little bit of rain late in the day tomorrow and tomorrow evening. But for the most part, this rain actually is going to avoid the big cities here. And we may see a period of wet snow on Saturday over northern New England, but it looks like rain for much of the main seacoast. The trend, this is the NAM model. Other models are a little bit farther to the east. We're seeing a bit of a shift to the right, which sends the heaviest rain offshore. Unfortunately, though, in Atlantic Canada, that means we are going to see potentially some more rain than maybe what was originally predicted. And here's a look at the HER model. And you can see it's still going to be kind of a wet day today over central Florida, and the East Coast could see some significant rain. Let me zoom in and show that to you all here. I'm doing this on the fly today. I've been battling the crud too, and it's just been kind of difficult, just to be honest with you all. But I'm going to do my best here, so appreciate the prayers. But you can see here, let me go back one model run. Looking at Florida, we still are in for a kind of a cool, wet day over central Florida. This is actually what we want to see in Tampa. We don't want to see the flooding that Miami and Fort Lauderdale saw, but we do want to see kind of cooler, wet weather. So a great day to stay inside today, but the rain very much is welcome. The east coast of Florida doesn't need as much rain, but is going to see significant rain continuing up until about midday tomorrow, and then just a few lingering showers. And then kind of a cloudy Seattle-like look to Friday afternoon and even early on Saturday in Florida. Let's look at Atlantic Canada and eastern New England. You can see this front is going to drop down here Friday evening, and then our low pressure system moves up into Nova Scotia Saturday night. The colder air wraps around it, so we could see a period of very heavy snow, wet snow over portions of eastern New Brunswick, over the Gaspé Peninsula, over portions of southeastern Quebec and Labrador. That's going to lift away. And then just a cool, dry setup with lingering snow showers into early next week before we await our next storm. You can see wind gusts in kilometers per hour are going to ramp up here across Atlantic Canada, with gusts getting up to as high as 50 kilometers per hour on Saturday morning, and then ramping up pretty quickly. Let me lift that back here. 60 to 70 kilometers per hour. And then you can see the big bulk of wind comes in here Saturday evening around 9, 10, 11 o'clock, with gusts approaching 130 kilometers per hour over far eastern portions of Nova Scotia. In the U.S., we've got big changes coming here, done with Canada, but let's look at the U.S. here. We have one trough lifting through, bringing seasonable cool weather in this weekend to the eastern U.S., then a ridge that brings up some moisture from the Gulf, and then take a look at this storm that drops down at the end of the weekend into next week. A significant storm which drops pretty much all the way down into Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas on Monday is likely to draw some tropical moisture northward. And as winds aloft begin to pick up, we should see some severe weather down here. The other part of this is, interestingly, how strong this piece of energy coming down from Canada is. This is a piece of the polar vortex, and it will start feeling that way here by the middle of next week, heading right into Thanksgiving with unseasonable chill across much of the central and eastern United States. This kind of cold gets all the way down into the Gulf of Mexico, into Florida, and we see drier, much cooler weather all the way down into Florida for the second part of next week. So kind of a Christmassy feel to things. It won't be like last Christmas where it was brutally cold, but it will definitely feel a lot colder for you guys. And that chill continues on into the weekend before yet another system potentially tracks across the country here later next weekend. So we are in for some big sweeping changes in the weather pattern. You can see all this mild air that's building east of the Rockies here over the weekend is going to yield to this much colder air mass dropping southward. These are 850 millibar temperature anomalies, and we're looking at temperatures 20 to 25 degrees Celsius below average in the coldest part of this core of cold over Montana, Saskatchewan, and North Dakota. The time frame on this here is during the day Wednesday, as a lot of folks are traveling, and look how that cold intensifies into Thanksgiving. It stretches east, it stretches southward. We do see a brief warm up over the weekend for the Gulf states, but another wave of cold comes down potentially after that. So things are very quickly going to change. We're going to stop talking about tropics next week and start talking about wintry precipitation. But we do have severe weather potential here building for next week, and we really haven't seen that for a while. You can see here the southern portion of this Pacific jet starts sending those faster winds aloft into the southwest, and they emerge into Texas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana by the time we get to Sunday night and Monday. You can see this ribbon of very fast wind flow of 80 to 90 knots up at 500 millibars. And this will certainly set up the possibility for any storm that forms to become severe. Tough to say if this will be a tornado outbreak. I do think tornadoes are possible, but I can't say exactly at what time and in what location. We still have a few days before this forecast will get fine-tuned, but I do think damaging winds do look to be a possibility as you see this ribbon of very fast winds tracking through the south central U.S. It'll move out by Tuesday and Wednesday. I don't think the rest of the southeast really sees it. Then you can see a much colder look here as very cold air pours on into the south as we get right into Thanksgiving. Here's a look at the GFS model from earlier this morning. You can see a pretty quiet weekend for most of us here. Then our next storm moving through the south central U.S. on Sunday. It'll bring some heavy mountain snow to the Rockies. We'll see some heavy rain developing over the Ozarks region into the Ohio Valley on early Monday. And with the warm sector and this deepening low, we'll likely have severe weather down south. And I'll look at that with you guys here in a little bit. As this low tracks up through the Great Lakes, this was a track we saw very much over last winter. We have cold air meeting it here in New England, so it will start off as a wintry storm going over to rain in interior portions of the Northeast here, probably Tuesday night and maybe into the first part of Wednesday as well. So significant snow on the busiest travel day of the year for some in New England is a possibility, according to the GFS. Is it a given? Not necessarily. We still have to wait a few more days before we get some more certainty on this, but models have been trending in this direction. So obviously, we're going to be dealing with some wintry weather here before Thanksgiving in portions of the Northeast and certainly across the Great Lakes. Heavy lake effect snow here as this cold air pours in. Should be dry across the Southeast. Then we have a question mark storm here towards next weekend, but I'm not going to take us too far out in the forecast as that certainly could change some more. Looking real quick, though, at our severe weather potential, and you can see we do have some available potential energy for storms, some storm fuel starting to build up here Sunday night over Oklahoma and Texas, and then advancing slowly eastward across Texas into Louisiana, Mississippi, and Arkansas on Monday afternoon and night, and then even across western Florida here late Monday night, early Tuesday morning, but that storm fuel starts to dissipate over Florida before Thanksgiving. We do have a severe weather threat starting to emerge. This is going to be Sunday, especially Sunday afternoon, Sunday night, the I-35 corridor from Dallas and Fort Worth up to Stillwater, Oklahoma, maybe even up into Tulsa as we get farther on into this storm as it moves east and picks up more moisture on Monday and Monday night. A threat for some severe weather over portions of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. Let me take this a little farther east so you guys can see the eastern fringe of this gets to about Montgomery, Alabama here later Monday afternoon and especially Monday night. Still some timing on this, but I would not be shocked if we had a large area of slight risk and maybe an enhanced risk out of this. Moderate risk, a little too soon to make that call. I'm not going to sound the alarms just yet until we get more confidence in this forecast. And I'm going to be overseas when it happens, so I can't really do anything about it anyway. It's going to happen whether or not I'm here to forecast it. So just start preparing for that As we get on into the second part of the weekend, you can see this storm fuel beginning to develop here over western and northwestern Texas and western Oklahoma Sunday afternoon and Sunday night. You see about 1,000 to 1,500 joules per kilogram over central Oklahoma. So I do think, there's enough storm fuel here to maybe see a tornado or two, certainly some strong wind and even some hail. And then this threat continues on eastward into Monday morning over central and east Texas and southeast Oklahoma. And then probably our best chance is going to be over Louisiana, Mississippi in this area, near and north of I-12 and I-10 here by Monday evening. That's our best chance to see severe weather. The rain will be welcome. The severe weather threat certainly won't be. Here's a look at the European model just to prove to you guys I'm not just looking at the GFS here. And the Euro shows pretty dense areas of lightning here going by Monday afternoon. Let's back it up to Sunday. You can see there'll be some elevated convection in Oklahoma and Texas Sunday evening. And then Monday, that's when things start to get more active here over central and east Texas, maybe down to about Houston, and then across central and northern Louisiana. The best threat for severe weather, I think, will be in places like Alexandria, over to Vicksburg, over down to maybe Washington Parish in Louisiana, Meridian, Mississippi. And it's possible we could see some heavy rain. At this point, any heavy rain would be lagniappe. I'm not expecting it. It certainly could be a little extra there. But more likely the severe weather is going to be the potential issue here. Here's the timing on our storm. It emerges out of the Rockies on Sunday and Sunday night. Heavy rain around St. Louis, some wet snow over the panhandle of Nebraska. Then we start to see some potential snow over portions of Minnesota and Iowa Monday night, maybe northwest Illinois, more likely Wisconsin. Even Madtown's getting in on this, but Sheboygan on up to Green Bay, Appleton, up into the UP of Michigan on Tuesday. Substantial snow is possible if this low tracks through Indiana. If that low tracks farther south and east, Chicago, you may have some trouble. Lafayette, Indiana, maybe even Grand Rapids, Michigan. If it shifts farther west, which we saw all of last winter, then we're talking about rain in Milwaukee and Chicago and heavy snow in places like La Crosse and Iowa City and maybe even the Twin Cities here at some point Tuesday and Tuesday night. Nonetheless, it's getting a lot colder. We'll have lake effect snow, which could be very heavy off of Lake Michigan, off of Lake Superior. And then we'll have to keep an eye on a system that could try to develop in the Central Plains here. This is showing snow in St. Louis and Kansas City on Friday, Black Friday here. So we'll have to see on that one. Not forecasting that at this point. In the Northeast, light to moderate rain moves through here, mainly Friday evening. Some wet snow on the backside here. Then our storm congeals. We'll still see some snow in the North Country on Sunday and Monday. Not going to be a lot except on the mountains. And then we have to watch out. This cold air lingers as our next storm moves in, and we could see some icy precipitation over western Maryland, central PA, moving up into central New York here Tuesday night. Maybe significant freezing rain and sleet, but again, a little too soon to make that call. Probably rain for the big cities here at this point, although we could see snow on the front end in Connecticut, Rhode Island, and even portions of the Boston area. But I would not be shocked if this tried to go over to sleet and rain and cut down our snow totals here if this track is correct. Again, things could certainly change here. If we take a look at the European model, for example, we see some differences here in timing, obviously here. And in fact, it changes things over to rain much more quickly. So the GFS has a lot of this area getting frozen precipitation, whereas the European says it's going to be very brief going over to rain by Wednesday, which is what we're pulling for because nobody wants to deal with freezing rain or snow when they're trying to travel over to see their family here on Wednesday. Here's the potential snow map from the GFS, an inch or two for most spots here, except across eastern portions of New Brunswick. As we head into next week, the GFS is very robust here with over a foot of snow possible over interior central New England and eastern portions of New York State. But as I showed you, the European does not agree with that, so the jury's still out. Doesn't show anything in New York City, doesn't really show much on Cape Cod, certainly nothing in Philly, but you will see some backside snow here. And I'll show that to you here in the Great Lakes, a little bit of backside snow, and certainly a lot more significant snow over upper parts of Michigan and northwestern lower Michigan and eastern parts of Wisconsin. Stay tuned on that. In Canada, you're definitely getting a lot of snow with this storm coming up through Newfoundland here on Sunday and Sunday night. That moves out. Then we see more significant snow wrapping back into Newfoundland with the potential to see up to 50 centimeters of snow in just 2 days. So things are going to get very active across Canada. And then temperatures, and I'm going to wrap this up for you guys. You'll see how quickly south they go next week. Warm air builds back into the southeast. Monday, we're in the 60s and 70s, even 80s in Florida. Then take a look here at Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving. We stumbled to get above 50 in Atlanta, out of the 40s in Birmingham, 30s around Kansas City. And here comes the cold. Look at Western Canada on Thanksgiving. We're barely getting above 5 degrees Fahrenheit. We're in the teens in many of the Dakotas, and it only gets colder from there. On Friday, single-digit temperatures expected across many areas of interior New England and the upper Midwest. Saturday will probably be our coldest morning, and the cold continues to revamp and come on down here early the following week. We'll have more on that in the coming days. So this was a very long video, mainly because I'm getting ready to travel. I may not even be able to get a video out tomorrow. Definitely not from Saturday on, probably not until the Tuesday or Wednesday after Thanksgiving. And I apologize for that, but this means a lot to my family. But obviously, you guys mean a lot to me as well. So I would love to provide you with as much as I can. If I get a little bit of downtime while I'm overseas, I will certainly give you guys some posts, and maybe at random hours of the day, of course, with that 14-hour time difference, but I'll do what I can. Thank you all so much. You all mean the world to me. I really do wish the very best on everybody here. As a meteorologist, it is my calling to do this. I also believe that God has called me to do this, and I give him all the glory through his son, Jesus Christ, who I accepted over 10 years ago as my savior. I very much would love to share the good news with you guys of how my life has changed. And 10 years ago, I was in a dark spot, didn't really have any hope, and put all my worth in my work, in my college degree, and what my paycheck was or wasn't. And even some of my friends, rather than looking to God and saying, God, I have so much more in you if I just choose to believe. And now I truly believe I have eternal life coming to me, and that I can bless many other people. I will say one quick verse from James 2:26, King James Version. For as the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead also. It's not just belief and hope, but it's walking it out and doing what God has called me to do. I truly believe that this is what God has called me to do. It's sharing the good news with all of you, and walking out my faith, doing the hard work, and being blessed and being able to bless other people. I would love to encourage you and lift you up with Thanksgiving. I have so much more to be thankful for than to not be thankful for. And I think looking at every blessing and counting it, to me, is just makes me feel better about not just myself, but more better about that I'm actually living a life with some purpose. And I think we all strive for that. We all want our lives to mean something. That dash between when we're born and when we die on earth needs to mean something. And for me, it's sharing my faith with you all and doing this work and sharing my work with you all. I'm very successful in corporate America. I love that. I can't really talk about my faith. It's a secular world, and that's okay. And I'm sure many of you are in the same boat, and many of you aren't believers, and I'm not going to judge you on that either. I want to respect you for whatever you believe, but just know that God still has called me to live out his purposes, and this is my purpose and my calling, and that's to share everything with you all here that means the most to me. So I would love to pray for you. Please, if you have a quick minute and you are the praying type, pray for me and my family and for my brother. This is going to be very important for us, very exciting and very anxious, but I know God's going to come through in the end and make this a wonderful trip for all of us. So I hope you all have a great rest of your week. And again, I might try to get a video in tomorrow, but no promises on that. We will do our best, of course, but get ready for this weather coming up. Have a blessed day, everyone. See y'all soon.